Hi, my name is Lisa Cup, and I will be speaking to you today about ethical behavior in the health information management industry. We have a lot of interesting topics to discuss. But first of all, we're going to talk about what is exactly ethical behavior in health information management. Basically, it's assuring competence through thorough and complete documentation. It also involves keeping abreast of current policies and regulations. Who is affected? The entire range of people and organizations involved in healthcare, from the patient to the provider, to the facility, to the organization that regulate healthcare, and also to lawmakers and indeed to the general public. Ethical behavior in healthcare is outlined by ethical codes. Ethical behavior in health information management involves knowing by heart regulations, procedures affecting the privacy, security, and potential fraud. When? Well, the first ethical code was enacted in 1934 for health information management professionals, and the latest put forth by HIMA was adopted in 2011, and also in 2016, another code that we'll talk about, where we encounter ethical situations as health information management professionals in the workplace on a daily basis. Health information management is a critical component of healthcare. It's often overlooked, but it is essential to a patient's quality care. We are entrusted as professionals to provide high quality services, and this means accurate communication. Because we collaborate with so many individuals, it's really essential that we have good communication skills. We're trusted to be thorough, accurate, and up to date on the latest regulations and laws. Trust requires our own due diligence to thoroughly read and understand pertinent policies, procedures, regulations, and ethical codes. Who is affected rather than infected? Who is affected by ethical behavior? Well, the entire range of the healthcare system, from the patient to the public, everyone is affected by our own professional behavior. And trust is so necessary to establish quality patient medical care. And to ensure the data integrity and security and privacy, we must be thoroughly familiar with all the facets of our profession. We must know HIPAA rules, the 4 rules of HIPAA that were affected by the ARRA, and we also know the standards and the frameworks such as ISO and HITECH. And finally, we must share our requirements appropriately as needed if they will benefit the patient. There are 8 general moral principles involved in healthcare, and 3 of those are shared by all healthcare professionals. Those 3 are autonomy, beneficence, and justice. Autonomy being the respect of the individual to make their own autonomous decision. So we need to provide the patient with all the pertinent information that they need to make an informed decision. We also need to respect the judgment of our colleagues and other healthcare professionals. So we must make sure that the patient has that appropriate information, that our colleagues have that appropriate information. Beneficence is basically doing what's right for the patient. That means making sure that everyone involved is on the same page. And then justice is making sure that the same patient in a similar situation would have access to the same care. So once again, these 3 qualities are shared by everyone, and it's upheld by all healthcare professionals' code of ethics. And this highlights the reason for CEUs. Continuing education units are so important. They're a means for us to stay current in our practice. So ethical behavior related to important issues like privacy and fraud prevention At times, we will be confronted by patients to alter or modify healthcare information in order to secure insurance. Facilities may also approach us, the same with practitioners. So in those instances, we must remember that we must abide by our professional code of ethics. Similarly, other healthcare professionals have their own healthcare code of ethics with which they must comply. Facilities also are subject to audits. They have their own sets of guidelines with which they need to follow. And finally, patients have their own set of rights and responsibilities. They are responsible to adhering to those. Finally, the HIMA codes, they state that we must promote ethical behavior in the workplace. We are also responsible to share this information with others, with our colleagues, with our coworkers, and with our patients, with the general public. We are required to know those codes and to live by them on a daily basis, also to share that with others. All right, privacy issues. We must know about HIPAA violations. The HIM professional is responsible for communication to the patient of any privacy rights and consent to release. We need to make sure that they are fully aware of all of their rights and responsibilities. We need to follow guidelines and standards which govern methods for consent. We must adhere strictly to policy and maintain accurate privacy records as well. The first HIMA Code of Ethics was developed in 1957. Since then, revisions have been made. The latest Code of Ethics was adopted in 2011, and then the HIMA Standards of Ethical Coding was adopted in 2016. There is some overlap between the codes, but both of them are really worth reading because they improve our practice. They are a way for us to improve our skills, improve our knowledge, and also they're an advanced organizer, if you will, of how we can react to potentially important decisions that we need to make involving ethical dilemmas. They're a good way to prevent problems from happening in the first place, and they're also a good way to know how to respond when we're faced with those situations in the workplace. And finally, the very first Code of Ethics for medical records technicians was set forth by ARLNA in 1934, and it was instantiated by Grace Whiting. And to summarize, as HIM professionals, we must thoroughly understand and live by our professional code of ethics. Our codes provide useful guidelines to improve our skills and our professional abilities. They also provide a framework or an advanced organizer to think about how to handle difficult situations. They're a good way to think proactively and prevent problems from happening. And privacy issues and fraud are big issues in health information management, so we must know how to keep current with the latest regulations and procedures, and we must prepare in advance for how to deal with those situations. Finally, we must prudently and appropriately share that information with others and to help improve the patient's care and to help improve our standards of practice and to share that with people who may benefit from that. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you had a little bit of fun and learned a little bit that is helpful to our course.